Welcome to the No BS Short-Term Rental Podcast, an unfiltered look into the global vacation and short-term rental industry.
I'm Mateo Bradford.
And I'm John Stokinger.
And this is our podcast. We bring the right people to the table at the right time, giving you an inside view and take on the short-term rental industry like no other podcast can.
Morning, Mateo.
Good morning.
So, No BS Podcast coming to you live from FAVR Xtravaganza, formerly known as Florida Line. I don't know, Florida Verma, but now FAVR Xtravaganza. We are joined. Well, if you're watching a video, you're going to notice that. Well, this is not Mateo. So this is interim Mateo. Not as good looking, not as handsome as Mateo. But Will Slickers is joining us today. Thank you for joining us. But we are joined today for a very special, shorter episode of No BS Short-Term Rental Podcast, Season 3, Episode 12. Mr. Steve Trover, a better talent. Thanks, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Appreciate you joining us. We were talking before we started hitting record. We're talking about, kind of, you're an OG here, like in the space, like
call me old.
Yes. I am calling you old. And kind of the joke there, I don't say the joke, but you're the white hat guy. But I mean, there's a lot more to you, and then also just than better talent. And I want to talk about that.
Okay.
But how the hell did you get into the space? Because you're a tech guy before, and then you're like, how did you stumble into the industry?
Yeah, sure. I actually wasn't a tech guy before I got into.
You weren't? Okay.
So now got into tech, and I'll talk about.
We're straightening it out. We'll straighten this out.
Like everybody, almost everyone in this industry, in fact, pretty much everybody fell into the industry. I did this because my mother, when we moved to Florida in 1984, started selling real estate, and she would sell homes here in the Orlando area. And when you work in the close to Disney area in real estate back then, and even today, you get a lot of people coming from other parts of the world that want to buy a vacation home. Back then, it was British people. In fact, for a long time, the vast majority of the vacation rentals in Orlando were owned by the British. We called it British Invasion 2.0 after the Beatles. And they would come buy a single family home with a pool for $100K, which you couldn't buy a broom closet in London for that much.
Right,
so
for sure.
They were buying them in droves, and she would then refer them to a management company that they obviously needed once they bought the house. And she just kept having challenges with those management companies. They weren't doing a good job for their clients. We've heard this story before. And I had started several businesses prior, none in the tech business up to that point, and thought, how hard can this thing be?
Right.
Well, 25 years later, I can tell you it's pretty freaking hard. So no question. And started a very small, one property like most, and decided pretty quickly that I really wanted to be more of a marketing company. And at one point in the first couple of years, we marketed all over the state of Florida. So we had dots on the map, and this is in 1999.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, when was this?
97 is when I started.
Okay.
So by 99, I had about 20 locations in Florida.
I don't want to date you, but, I did graduate high school in 96.
Thank you for that.
No,
I was born in 95, so.
Holy shit.
Well, I'll date myself. I turned 50 3 days ago. So
there you go. I'm only a few years behind you.
Yeah,
so. And then the baby here, Mateo 2.0.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So, got into that, into the marketing side. Back then there was no consumer reviews. So it was really hard to find good operators because they really weren't incentivized to do a good job because there wasn't, digital consumer reviews. And so we just decided, we're going to have to do this thing ourselves, started managing our own properties. And so that was around 2000. Pretty close to that time, developed a proprietary CMS, content management system for our website. Kind of free the WordPress days, if you will. Didn't have that to do. And about 2001, we built a booking engine. And this is a booking engine on a SaaS platform, which did not exist at that time.
Right.
And then we just started adding different components to that. That proprietary PMS system ultimately became LiveRes. So that's how I got into, and I was not a techie. I was like, I need a button here and I needed to do this. Right.
Right.
Ultimately, obviously became more technically capable as that developed out. I was a chief strategy officer for that company for several years.
Well, I mean, you don't have to, you have to hire smart people.
Mm-hmm.
Like tech guys and gals, they hire smart people. If you're going to get to points when you're developing tech or you're developing this asset, you're like, hey, I want to hire people that are smarter than me and better than me at this, because if
Yeah.
you don't, you're falling behind right from the beginning. I mean, you don't have to, you just have to be the idea guy and gal.
You know, the fun thing about being a visionary is that's all you have to be.
Yeah.
If you find the right people around you. Now, if you don't, that's where the struggle happens.
Right.
So you were just telling me yesterday, EOS, right? Like you got the executor.
You know, and I'd love to tell you that I found that 25 years ago. I didn't. And, you know, we did components of it in my businesses. And so kind of going back though, launched the company, which by the way was called All Star Vacation Homes, and had that for 20 years. Scaled it from 0 to 400 properties.
Properties, just a couple.
Yeah. We had the management company, we had a real estate company. And for most of that time, we only took on what we sold through our real estate company. 2000-ish, we started an interior design company called Beyond Furnishings. So we would sell the house, we would then furnish the home, we would then manage the property. So kind of vertical integration. Started scaling the management side of the business. And we had, 100 employees at peak.
No kidding.
Pretty scaled. And we ended up opening up in Captiva Island, Florida.
Yeah.
In a location in Sun Valley. And then we bought a company in San Diego. So we were in 4 locations. And up until about 2007, we were working with builders in this destination, which are primarily big box builders like Pulte, Lennar. And I was struggling because they would not build what we wanted, which was a high bedroom count home that also had all the components that you need for a vacation.
So you were at that time, and again, now give me an approximate date again, because there's been a lot of dates thrown around here.
Sure. 2000 and up until about 2008, right when the crash.
So before, I mean, purpose built wasn't really like terminology, especially for VR at that time. So like this is, you're already thinking purpose built stuff back then, but no one's really complying with your needs and your asks and your desires.
We had one little community called Acadia Estates, and it was still a production home, but it was built by a custom home builder production and scale. We were able to influence that. We called it guest influence design. So we went to the guest and design it in what they wanted. We take out big walk-in closets. We got enough dining space, some of the real logical stuff. And then we got into the minutia. But even with Acadia, it wasn't quite, ground up design. And so in 2008, we launched purpose-built vacation homes. Right about the time nobody was building or developing anything.
Was that actually the name, purpose-built
vacation homes? I held that trademark for a lot of years. And so,
wow.
Yep. And now you hear it all over the internet.
I know.
It's kind of fun, actually. So, yeah.
You probably should have kept that.
Sometimes you're okay with the industry going and running with stuff. So, but yeah, that was purpose-built. And we started designing these from the ground up. So we would do all of the architectural, we do all of the engineering, we get involved in every, surface pick. So I would bring my operations team in and we look at the flooring and the counters and everything. We wanted it to be very easy to use. So intuitive. You went into the home, you guys have stayed in the vacation home. It was really technically challenging and I can't figure out anything. We wanted to eradicate that. And we wanted to create spaces where every single inch of that property was utilized, that it was optimized, that it was optimized for guest experience, but it was also optimized for investment return.
Right.
Because the ultimate goal and the thing that I was really passionate about seeing happen was for equity to come in as opposed to individual owners.
Right.
And the reason why is because we wanted to scale it and do it all over the country.
Right.
So
makes sense.
So there's purpose-built vacation homes, and then there was purpose-built communities, which is where we were going next.
Right. I mean, in being here in Orlando at the Florida FAVR Xtravaganza, you look around and there's so many purpose-built communities now that are, this is the mecca for purpose-built communities for the SDR and, vacation rental world. It's interesting to see, I came into this space, 7 years ago, after the crash and everything's back up and it's booming and, and it's been booming for years. Mm-hmm. And it's still, it's night and day today, what it was when I was here 7 years ago. It's still, it's friggin' rocket.
Yeah.
And, it's all because of you. No, I'm
no. Well, and to be clear, I mean, short-term rental plan communities, which is a designation in Osceola County, that was probably the first county in the United States to have such a designation, because this goes back into the 80s and 90s.
Right.
I didn't create it.
No, I know. I'm just giving
purpose-built vacation homes. Yeah, I came up with the name and the concept and all that. But I just want to,
Can I ask you, just on the 25 years kind of timeline for you, what's the biggest differentiator from back then to now? has the industry changed that much, or is there a lot of similarities that you're still seeing from when you guys were operating and building purpose-built communities and homes? Like, is the overall fundamentals still there?
Let me tell you what it was like in 1997, Mateo. My first marketing plan, the number one thing that I wrote on my one-page marketing plan in 1997 was classified advertising.
Classified.
I would go on to the Boston Globe, New York Times, not their website because they didn't have one.
Yeah.
And I would buy an ad, a 3-line ad, rent a vacation rental near Disney World, $85 a night.
Yeah.
That's serious, with a pool. And they would call me and I would send them a packet of information. And then they would call me back to book. And then they would have to fax me their rental contract. Fax. Yeah. That's how much it changed.
So it changed a little bit.
Yeah, just a tad. Yeah.
So in these 25 years, and we'll get into better talent here soon, but I want to talk about, obviously we know how you came into the industry. We know, a lot of your mark in the industry, but part of your mark in the industry was time at both here and in, committees and membership and, here and at FAVR, but also you're in the board here, but also you're the vice president and both the president as well for VRMA. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what time frame was that? Like, was it, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So late 90s, early 2000, I went to a Central Florida Property Managers Association meeting, which is actually now rolled up into FAVR as is Florida VRMA. And I didn't sit on my hands and I ended up on that board.
Yeah.
So you know how that works,
yeah,
right?
I know.
It's a local board.
I'm on a few committees myself.
If you don't sit on your hands, they'll voluntold you.
Yeah.
So I got into that and went from the Central Florida to Florida, which was this organization years ago. It was called Florida VRMA, like you mentioned earlier. And I worked my way up and I was vice president of this organization. And when I was vice president, I was going to be president. Paul Hayes was president at the time.
Yeah.
And then I moved to VRMA and there was a whole takeover of VRMA. We had a challenging management company and we did this thing called Save VRMA. And I ended up on the board of that. And then I ended up not sitting on my hands again. I was vice president for 3 years and president for 2. And, I absolutely loved my time there. It was a lot. I was on 14 boards and committees at one time.
Right.
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah. It was crazy. And so 14 at one time while running 5 companies. It was great.
Yeah. That's a lifetime of no.
Yeah. I was young and dumb. And, I'm super, super passionate about this industry.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get back to the industry. I wanted to see it grow. Back then, you asked what's changed. Our biggest issue back then was not like government affairs or anything. It was just awareness. People did not know that you could rent a vacation rental near Disney.
Wow.
Right.
It was the British did, but the Americans didn't. So we were really focused on raising awareness for a lot of years.
That's awesome.
It's changed so much.
Oh yeah. Well, Airbnb and Vrbo and all that really kind of elevated the industry. And I know a lot of people don't like those guys, but they definitely
did
massively impacted us for the better. So sure.
Yeah. I mean, and now it's, Airbnb is unfortunately, for us here in the space, it's like Kleenex is, tissues, or Kleenex is to tissues. It was a necessary evil. And I don't want to say evil because I'm working for Hopper as an OTA, but it was necessary to springboard the industry in the right direction. And now I think, there's been definitely a decent amount of movement to kind of take back the word of vacation rental. And we have a long way to go.
Right.
I know working for Hopper, we are a distribution channel. We are one of many. Obviously we would like people to use us. But we know we're going to use the other ones as well.
Right.
But no one's going to, I booked a Hopper.
Naturally, last night, actually, my brother-in-law goes, "Have you heard of this thing called Hopper? Because you should check this out."
Hard to get the name right.
And we're getting there.
Well, I told him, I was like, "Well, I actually know a guy." So that's
Tell us about better talent. I know you guys have been making some waves, and again, you just recently talked about, a couple minutes ago about giving back.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately this comes back. We're in a position where everyone's looking to hire. There's a talent, I wouldn't say shortage, but there is a need to point people in the right direction. There's a need to acquire the right talent. I know that you guys have a very a specific way of going ahead and categorizing? Can you tell us a little bit about Better Talent and what you guys are doing with that?
Yeah. So when I sold my companies, got out of being a manager and started recovering as a manager, you have to do that after you.
Any groups?
Any groups want to shout out?
We'll set one up. You can be on the committee.
Was I just voluntold? So we're both prior military, but we're voluntold a lot. But I was also having a family on the weekends. They would tell us that we'd have mandatory fun, basically.
Right.
Like you'd have to take your family, and you'd have to. It was just mandatory my fun. And my wife and I would look at each other and just eye roll, like, oh, here we go again. All right, sorry.
No problem.
I appreciate you.
You're not adding to the population, taking away from the population, or waking up in a jail cell the next morning. You're good.
Yeah. Yep.
So started a consulting company about little over 5 years ago. And the reason why I did that is I really wanted to spend time really thinking about what I wanted to do next. I've started 15 companies over 32 years, and I didn't always do that. In fact, I never did that. I would just kind of get an idea and run with it, and it was vertically integrated, so it was fine. Well, that's a distraction, and it really wasn't all, some of them I'm really glad I did, and others maybe I shouldn't have done. So I really wanted to spend that time. And what I realized was when I look back at everything I had done up to that point, there was a commonality between all the things that was a challenge, and that was the people. It wasn't the tech, it wasn't the business model, it wasn't the vision, it wasn't those things. Those are all important components. But if I have all those things right and I don't have the right people, I'm not successful in any of those businesses. And so I looked at that, and I looked at the fact that really nobody was doing anything about that in the space. And, people have done recruiting in the vacation rental industry, obviously, but they weren't really doing anything to help the industry in that respect and to bring talent in, keep talent in.
Right.
Because a lot of people churn out of this industry, and there's some really great talent that leave. And we don't want that.
Yeah.
Right. And
so need to keep that. Yeah.
And then we need to bring really great people that are designed for the roles that we need. And so one of the things I found about 15 years ago was behavioral profiling and personality testing. And so once I caught on to that, I never looked back. I wouldn't hire a babysitter without doing a personality profile. In fact, if the babysitter has my personality, they can't watch my kids. So, and so we started doing that years and years ago. It was very successful. And then we took that into what we were doing from a recruiting perspective. And about 2.5 years ago, came up with the brand Better Talent with the intention of migrating towards a subscription-based talent acquisition company. And the reason why I wanted it to be subscription-based, which is super unique in the recruiting world, if you will, most recruiters charge a percentage of the salary.
Right.
At 20, 30% most of the time.
And it gets up there. I mean, especially where salaries are for the right talent today. It's,
Exactly. As you guys know, that's pretty steep for this industry. And, most people don't want to pay, say, $50,000 for $150,000 general manager of a, that's a lot of money to spend. Not that they're not of value, but
even if you're, putting in the, you've done the behavioral things and you've done all these things, there's still always a chance of churn. And if you're going to go ahead and you're going to pay $50,000 for someone that's at 150, shit. I mean, that's no one in their right mind.
And the other thing I saw that was a problem with the recruiting model is that they make money when you hire. And my view is that I want you to choose who you hire. I want to give you a lot more data around that individual, but I don't want to sell you on hiring a person. Right. And our team does not sell applicants. We present them. We give you a lot more information than you might get on your own, but we definitely don't sell them because we're not incentivized by a hire.
Right.
We're just paid on a subscription basis. And so the model is more aligned with the management company. The other thing that happens when you think about a recruiter is they're trying to sell you on hiring because the more you hire, the more they make. Well, that may not be the right thing for a management company. They may not need a full-time employee. They may need a part-timer, a contractor, a VA, or even a consultant. And so in our scenario, we help you with all of those things in a cohesive fashion so that we're getting you to the most optimal people stack, which I call it that. Another term I'm trying to get traction with.
People stack.
You have a tech
people
stack, you have a people stack, right? So
there you go. TM.
You optimize your people stack. Yeah, trademark. On the works. But yeah, no, so that's kind of Better Talent today. And we've got 150 clients around the country, most of which are VRM, some of which are suppliers.
Right. My question for that is, what's your track record? Like, what is your, KPI? Like, where are you at? Like, how many people have you placed that haven't churned? Like, or the caveat to that, how many of you, like, what have you messed up on? Have you placed someone that was bad?
I don't know that there are all that many truly bad people. There are bad placements because they're a bad fit. They could be a bad fit from a personality profile.
Right. And I definitely didn't mean bad people,
Sure,
but I meant on more of a fit.
work.
Like you made this an educated assumption, and so did it. But for whatever reason, it still didn't work. Because my assumption is that it's not obviously nothing's 100% accurate with that kind of stuff.
Well, to be perfectly clear and non-avoidant, we have some data around that. We're collecting data. We're 2.5 years old. The subscription model went live 8 months ago.
Right.
So it's early stage. Most of the people we place, let's say 98% are still in their job. Right. So
at 10 months.
At 10 months. Right.
Which is good. I mean, trust me.
Yeah, exactly. Especially in today's day and age. Right. And so we do personality testing. So we make sure they're a good fit. Cognitive testing, make sure they can learn, things quickly. But also really encourage our clients to really focus on their interviews on cultural fit.
Right.
Because once you have somebody's resume, their behavioral, their cognitive, really culture is what matters. That's when they usually churn, is when there's just
they're not aligning for whatever reason.
The other thing I think we've messed up on early on is we work with some companies that, didn't have a good culture. And so today, we really care about who we work with, because we don't just care about the companies in this space, we care about the talent.
Right.
We really, I don't want to hire for somebody any more than I would want to build management contracts for a company that's doing a terrible job at management. Right. So we really want to work with clients that want to really build a great cohesive team and do great things. So that matters to us.
Well, can I ask, does the talent have the opportunity to interview the hiree or the employer in order to see if that's a good culture fit? I feel like that would be something really hard to streamline, right? Like that's got to be some kind of challenge.
Yeah. I mean, our process is pretty simple. The first thing we do is take them through the personality test. We match that to the role.
Yeah.
We then look at their resume, their application. We then do a video where we have the person just record an intro.
Okay.
It's like your virtual business card.
Right.
It's a single question. It's not an interview. Super simple. It just gives you an opportunity to kind of give your pitch, right, on why you might be great for a housekeeping manager role or general manager or whatever the role is, right? We then look at all of those components, make sure it's a good match for that particular client. If so, we send it to the client. The client then decides when they're going to interview the person. And that's when it's a two-way interview. We coach our clients on that, and most of them already view it that way, right?
Yeah.
It's a two-way street. You got to.
And we're in a position as someone that, is looking for a job today, like you're in the driver's seat, as someone looking, the economy and we're just the landscape of where talent is and where we're,
talent and real estate are about the same right now. It is definitely a seller's market.
Right.
Wow. So the talent's in charge, just like the seller's in charge, changing a little bit in real estate now, but it may change with talent again, and that happens. But here's the thing. We are not making enough babies in this country. And so the replacement value is right at about net 2.
Yeah.
A couple only has 2 kids on average. And the problem with that is we just don't have enough new people coming in. Immigration's broken. And so we do have a talent shortage.
Yeah, for sure.
We truly do. You millennials aren't making enough kids.
Well, it's really
transparent. I'm a Gen X.
Okay.
I'm 44.
Okay.
So I'm
look younger than I thought.
Okay, boomer.
Good fighting word.
No, that's what my kids would say to me, right?
I was going to say, but it's pretty damn expensive to have kids. So, at the end of the day, I'm fine with
right at about $1 million per kid.
Yeah. I'm good.
I'm about $4 million right now, so
I'm good.
Yeah, I have 4 kids. You have 4 kids?
Yeah, 4 kids.
Well, hey, we're doing all right.
We're doing all right.
That's the problem.
Yeah, you're the reason of the talent shortage.
Come on, Mateo, get your shit together.
Steve, we truly appreciate you joining us. This has been a pretty cool in-person, no BS. Anything like, if there's a property manager or anyone in the space or anyone in general that's looking for talent, how do they go ahead and get a hold of you? what's the process? What's the steps?
Absolutely. So bettertalent.com is our website.
Okay.
You can actually book a time with me on the website. You do meet with me first and foremost. We have 12 people on our team, but I meet every client at the beginning. I want to look at, what you're looking for. It may be a specific hire, or maybe it's your complete and total, organizational chart, your people stack. So work on
Right.
that. Yeah, people stack.
TM.
You can email me at steve@bettertalent if you like. You can find me on LinkedIn, Steve Trover on LinkedIn. Love engaging with people there. So
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure to put all those links on the website as well, and they'll also be in on all the description of the podcast. If you are listening to the podcast and you haven't gone ahead and given us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and leaving a review, please do so. It helps us out tremendously. Big shout out to Will for having me jump up here. I love being part of the Hospitality FM family.
I don't know who Will is.
I mean, Mateo, but it was a temporary thing today. And again, awesome. I'm glad you were joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
Well, thank you guys.
Appreciate
it very much.
This podcast is a Hospitality.fm production.